When I was 9 years old, I was convinced that if I didn't wash my hands exactly 36 times, then something bad was going to happen. I was also convinced that if I said one wrong word during prayer, and what do you know about prayer at 9 years old? I was basically doomed. My name is Reem Al Obeidani. I am a clinical psychologist, and I am also someone who struggled with anxiety before I even knew what that meant. Back then, we didn't know that much about mental health. We didn't have that much mental health awareness, especially in the Arab world. But my parents did their very best to support me. When I was a teenager, that anxiety was still there, but it looked different now. This was a time where I was focused on my studies and acing my classes. From the outside, I was achieving every goal I set for myself at a very young age. But from the inside, I was over-planning, over-analyzing. Everything I did had to be just right. At just 16 years old, I didn't know what it felt like to just relax. Fast forward to uni, when I started studying psychology. Psychology as a science tells us about mind and behavior, about the mental processes, about how we think, feel, and act. And the things I went through slowly started to make sense. I learned that there is a part of our brain, my brain and yours too, that essentially works like an alarm. It protects us from dangers. It's very useful. It keeps us from running straight into traffic, and it tells us to pull our hand away when we touch fire. But when you're anxious, anything and everything can feel dangerous, even your own thoughts. So our natural reaction as humans is to do everything in our power to avoid that sensation. So we avoid social gatherings, or we scroll on our phone for hours, or we wash our hands exactly 36 times. Now, I am a logical person. I am a problem solver. My anxiety was a problem that I was willing to do whatever it took to solve. Keep in mind, I was studying to become a psychologist. I wanted to help people. So it only made sense to help myself first. So I made a decision. I decided to go to graduate school to study this even more. I did my master's in clinical psychology. If you don't know what that's like, it's an intense program where you learn about different kinds of therapy and you learn to apply them in real life. When I tell you, I was having a blast. In my mind, I thought to myself, finally, I'm gonna have the recipe to get rid of this once and for all. So I started to apply those things. The deep breathing, the positive thinking, the cognitive behavior therapy, the meditation. But I was still anxious. Now, don't get me wrong. These things do work. There's a lot of evidence to support that. But what I didn't realize I was doing at the time was I was using all these different ways to avoid the anxiety itself. What I didn't realize I was doing was I was creating a giant anxiety loop. It was very creative, but it was still a way to avoid that experience. That was until I was introduced to a kind of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy. It sounds very fancy, I know, but let's go through this together. What it tells us is that if you want to have better mental health, you gotta be psychologically flexible. And to be psychologically flexible, you gotta accept your difficult thoughts, emotions, sensations, experiences as they are, instead of finding creative ways to avoid them, like I did. And you commit to doing things and taking action that makes your life meaningful. even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable. Now, this sounds simple, but to me, this was a radical realization. For the first time, what I was hearing was that my anxiety was not a problem. The way I was relating to it, the way I was relating to my anxious thoughts and feelings was the issue. But after 25 years of essentially avoiding that experience, I didn't know how to welcome it. In my mind, it made sense, but I didn't know what to actually do. Shortly after, I started running. Now, I'm a sporty person. I tried a bunch of different sports, but running was different. Running is an endurance sport. It's physically demanding and mentally taxing. Are there any runners in the room? I see some hands. If you're a runner, you know that no matter how much you run, it never actually gets easier. Even when you run and you get better, it's never actually easy. It's hard, and it's meant to be hard. But I wanted to get better at it. So I kept running. I ran even when my mind was telling me to quit. I ran even when my mind was telling me to stop. I kept running even when my chest was burning and my legs felt like they were going to give out. I kept running. And something interesting started to happen. I finally began to understand what it meant to sit with your emotions, to be with your thoughts, to feel those experiences. Because now, there was no escape. I was forced to be there and tolerate all those emotions and those sensations. I took what I had learned in running and I started applying it in my life. And surely enough, my anxiety went down. It's funny, really, that running taught me to stop running from anxiety, to stop running from myself. And I wanted other people to experience that too, especially women like myself. So this time, I did something different. There was no over-planning, no over-analyzing, just a strong desire to make it happen. So I started a page, and I put myself out there, and I invited other ladies to run with me. I wanted them to run and to see for themselves what running could do for them. Today, I'm happy to share that our community has over 5,000 women who run for their well-being. What I'm trying to say is, no matter what you're struggling with, whether it's anxiety or other mental health issues, or maybe you're just going through a really difficult time right now, the moment you stop running from yourself, you will finally meet the person you were always chasing. Thank you.